Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for staying with us. I continue our conversation this morning with Dr. Faith Brebnor, Secretary in the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. And we're switching gears a bit. When I introduced her, I teased her a bit and spoke about her being in the media recently and her division. So we had the ambulance fiasco earlier on, and it's amazing that when the dust settled, you heard a totally different story where the board would have walked us through, the steps and given us information. Then we had quite recently last week, the press release saying, hey, if you don't have to come to the hospital, please don't come. We're at full capacity. I just summarized it, how we received the message, right? On July 8th, and we saw the hospital system was put in emergency mode. Dr. Brebnor, this kind of attention, and we are a people who we run with the first bit of news, and that's why for some folks it's true, and people tell you, you even hear it from the media sometimes, we don't have to worry about accuracy, just get it out, we'll fix whatever problems after, because whatever gets into the people's mind first, that's the story that has the strength in terms of it running and it becoming truth, which is very dangerous, but that is how it is. When you see yourself, your staff who works hard, your division, put in the media like this and individuals, giving their version, maybe part may be true, part may not be true. How does that impact the division and its employees?
Certainly, it is, and I'm glad you phrased it that way, because I seem to really have been starring.
Yes.
And as an introvert, so this is actually not comfortable for me at all, but it is part of the process. I understand that. I actually think I have a theory, and the theory is that this is actually part of the PNM's strategy. And let me explain what I mean by that. The organization known as the People's National Movement have been in governance in Tobago for 20-something years. The reason why we are here now is because the people of Tobago decided to give us a chance. And I will say because those who were there before did not do what they were supposed to do. Okay. They did not deliver what they were supposed to deliver. They are actually quite bad at governance. If you look at track record, the organization is bad at governance. What they are really good at, though, is ensuring that whenever anyone else is governing, they are able to switch the minds of the people. And I see this as a two-pronged mechanism. The first prong has to do with tainting the perception of the ones who are there now doing it. So I'll use myself as an example. The thing is happening with the ambulance. You certainly hear all of these commentary about corruption and all of these things that are not true. And if you really listen to what the TRHA outlined, the procurement process was exactly as it should have been. But the aim was not really to talk about that, The aim was to ensure that the individuals who have a faith in me start quavering a little bit and having that confidence in me diminish a little bit. And it's something that they use a mechanism that allows it to creep over time. So you do it with one thing, you do it with the other thing, you do it with something else. And after a while, you realize we are close to election and people suddenly have all of these things that they are now not quite sure of about Dr. Faith, and I'm using myself as an example. And I see that as part of their strategy. On one side, it is part of their strategy. That will not work. But on the other side, I think, and this is the part that is actually more dangerous, I think the other side of their strategy is to prevent the people of Tobago from actually experiencing joy. Joy in the things that are now happening for them. So, for example, using the ambulance situation again, instead of you seeing these ambulances as a regular person on the street and you're walking around and you're seeing them passing and you say, well, oh, there's a new ambulance. Oh, we're so happy that there's a new ambulance. Just in case mommy or daddy needs an ambulance, I know there are now ambulances. They now have put into your mind this idea of there are so many things associated with the ambulance. So you now cannot experience the level of joy that you should have experienced, because we are now doing in 3.5 years what they did not do in 21 years.
Right.
And that is why I actually said, I did a short Facebook post yesterday where I actually said to people, I actually don't want you to love or support me regardless or in spite of or in the middle of it all. Because when you use that qualifier, it means that you are also accepting that what they are saying might be true, when in fact what they are saying is absolutely not true. And you need to say to them, stop bringing that kind of information that is absolutely false to the public, because we as the public will not accept it. It has been their strategy. They have used it whenever they are out of power, and they are trying to use it now. But I am saying to Tobagonians, we all do not allow them to use that strategy again, because in 3.5 years, you have gotten from this administration more than you have gotten from them in the last 21 years that they were there. You can't allow them to use that strategy on us again this time.
And how do you encourage your staff to work through the noise? Because even with the ambulance fiasco, you know, even without me knowing exactly what was happening, my thoughts were, okay, but there was a process to follow. Staff is involved. There must be a technical staff who would have done their research and said, this is the ambulance that is needed. And while the attention may have gone to you, I was more thinking on the back end, okay, well then if that is the end result, then somebody along the channel is accountable. You know, how does a staff member who would have done their job the best of their ability now deal with these kinds of accusations?
And part of what I was doing in the background was ensuring that the staff who did their work and did their work correctly they needed to understand that, yes, I know that this is happening publicly, and I know that I am the face of this and I'm getting the brunt of this, but know that I am not blaming you. Know that I have confidence that you did what you were supposed to do, because I know you are a competent procurement person, engineering person, whatever. I know that you are competent and you did what you were supposed to do. So don't worry, I'll take the hit. We will deal with it. I still have faith that you are doing your job, and that is what we have to go into this, knowing that I have your back and you have mine. You just keep doing what you need to do, because guess what? We have plenty more things to buy. You know why we have plenty more things to buy? Because them didn't buy it. So we have plenty more things to buy. We will need to go through the process as long as we follow the rules and nobody is doing anything. And I know that we're not doing anything. We're good to go. Let's just keep trudging on, because that is what we need to do for the people of Tobago.
And let's look at that press release briefly that was sent out July 8th. And I read, the Scarborough General Hospital has activated emergency mode for the next 48 hours due to a surge in patient admissions and capacity constraints across medical and surgical wards. And it goes on to give some more information. When a hospital system goes into emergency mode, what does that mean?
What does that mean? So I think the world and Trinidad and Tobago is traumatized coming out of COVID. I think before COVID, we really didn't care what happened in the hospital. We wouldn't pay any attention to it. Coming out of COVID, you see something like that and you automatically think, oh my God, the sky is falling. We have another COVID happening. But when you actually read what the release said, we were very clear. We simply have an increase in people who are presenting at the health facilities. And what emergency mode allows us to do is to take a little bit of time and level off, balance back, basically. Because we had a situation where the medical wards were filled, the surgical ward was filled, and we had, maybe 13 or 15 people sitting in A&E who needed to be admitted. And because that was happening, we decided that the best thing would be to halt everything that is not absolutely necessary right now. So for example, if you needed to do an elective surgery, what is an elective surgery? A surgery where you need to do it, but you don't have to do it right today. You could do it next week. Now the thing about the elective surgery is, even though it is not an emergency, when you come out of surgery, you still need to go into a surgical ward. Remember, we said the surgical ward is filled. There are no beds for you to go into the surgical ward
yes.
after you've done your surgery.
Right.
And we were also telling people, which is something that you spoke about earlier, that if you do not need to go to accident and emergency, we have all of these other facilities that you can go to, so that we could free up the staff who are there so that they could treat with the patients who are already in the system. We can do some discharging. We can send some back to their health centers.
Right.
We can send some to Roxborough because they don't need to actually be at Scarborough.
Right.
Let us give us 2 days to figure this out, and then we will go ahead, which is exactly what happened. We took the 2 days, we figured it out, we did the maneuvering, and then we decided, okay, let's open back up. We can continue again. But we are also encouraging you to keep going to Bacolet, Canaan, and Roxborough, for example, if the thing that you are treating with does not need accident and emergency kind of service,
Right.
so that we do not get back to
Right.
this point.
So if it is I bounce my toe, I don't have to go into A&E at Scarborough. I could use one of my local health centers. I might be sneezing and think I have the flu.
Yes.
I don't have to go to A&E. The name speaks for itself. It's accident and emergency. So maybe some of the older ones were not used to having these health centers functioning and having all these services, but it's there now. So you don't have to go too far. Check your village, the health centers are operational. You have the smaller ones as well. You can even get your meds there. The pharmacist is there. Find out their schedule when they'll be there. You don't have to take a taxi into Scarborough,
and then to Signal Hill.
Yes, and then to Signal Hill. And we know sometimes how long we have to wait at the pharmacy there, right?
But let me also say, though, part of what we are doing, remember I said we're doing this on a systemic level.
Yes.
Part of what we're doing is also looking at how the health centers can be restructured,
Right.
so that we can provide more of those services. Because, again, people behave based on what they know. I am sure in many instances, people tried going to the health center, and when they went to the health center, they couldn't get the service and they had to go up to the hospital.
Right.
So we have to make sure that when we are sending them to the health center can do what it needs to do. The primary healthcare system is actually currently reworking how we can provide those kinds of services, so that we have, for example, senior doctors doing certain things, junior doctors doing other things,
Right.
and we build it out in a way to encourage you to go to the health center, go to primary care, which actually is cheaper in terms of the cost of healthcare, to do that first before you head up to A&E. And while we're doing that kind of restructuring at the primary care system, we're also doing the restructuring that needs to happen at the A&E to
Right.
ensure that when you actually get there with your accident or your emergency, that you are seen quickly, you are triaged quickly. We can decide whether you need to be here, whether you need to rush to go in now, whether you could wait a little bit, and that kind of thing is happening all around, which is why, as I said before, don't allow the others who were there for the 20-something years who didn't do it to take this blessing away from you.
Right.
Don't allow them to do that.
And when we look at this same emergency, because I was one, and I'll be quite honest, when I read emergency mode, I'm like, what's going on? And then when I read it, I like, oh, the hospital full, because I am from South Trinidad. And when you go to San Fernando General Hospital, it's not an emergency mode, but you can clock in at A&E at 10 o'clock and not get a bed until the following morning. So it's like, oh, normal thing. People may be not used to that in Tobago.
And I think the difference is I may be one of the first secretaries, because I am the one who insisted on making this public.
Right.
When they called me and said, Doc, this is what we need to do, I said, but we need to tell the public.
Right.
We cannot just do this and not tell the public.
Right.
And I think that is what is different, because I insist on communicating. I insist on having Tobagonians understand what we are doing and why we are doing it, so that you could do what you need to do. Now, the other part about that is we recognize that the people who are coming in seem to be generally unhealthier.
Right. And I wanted to ask, how does the system now deal with that? Because this can happen quite often.
And by the way, it's been happening.
Right.
In terms of, we've been seeing the trends of the high occupancy rate.
Right.
So it's not like last week it suddenly happened.
Right.
I've been getting the data from the hospital for the last couple months, and we've been seeing the trends going up. So that has been happening. But we need to look at it again from several approaches. The system, ensuring that the system works so that it doesn't have bottlenecks, is part of it. But the population also needs to do what I did last year. What did I do last year? I got up one day and recognized, Faith, you're fat. And then I went to the doctor, and Dr. Duke buffed me because my cholesterol high,
Right.
and this, that, and the other, and how you could be Secretary for Health and you
Yes.
not healthy. And we
Right.
had a long, uncomfortable conversation.
Right.
And then I thought, okay, Faith, you need to do something about this. And I think that is part of the problem that we are seeing now, where we have people who are generally unhealthier, if that
Right.
is a word.
Right.
And because they are generally, their baseline is unhealthy, whenever they get quote unquote sick, it's kind of like if you are, if you get a little cough or cold, a little flu, if you're top shape, it might
Yes.
last for a day.
Yes.
But if you down and out, you get a cold for a week, 2 weeks.
And it turns into something.
Something
yes,
else.
more serious. And,
Exactly.
Yes.
And we're also seeing with the non-communicable diseases, for example, because those are the things that were presenting at the hospital, not any infection or anything like that. When they were coming for amputations. They are coming because their kidneys now failing, and we need to figure out to get them to dialysis. They are coming because they need to be hospitalized, and we're recognizing that when a patient like this normally would take 2 days in the hospital, they're now taking 5, they're now taking 7. So they're there longer because their baseline is now in an unhealthy state. And that is where we think the real work has to happen, where each individual has to take their own individual responsibility for themselves, for their families. I mean, I hope you're not expecting me to come in your house and tell you, don't eat this or don't eat that.
But you see, we have a society though, sometimes I wonder if we want people pick us up, take us, we have that kind of outlook in life. And I think it's so interesting that we don't see the connection.
Exactly.
Because the government have to provide health services. Were you talking about me and what I eat? That have nothing to do with me. And that's the mindset that many of us have. And we don't understand the long-term impact, how we live, all has an impact on someone else.
And talking about the government having to provide the service is not free. One of the reasons you cannot get all of the other things you need as a society is because every single month, as a rule, I have to approve sending at least $40 million to the TRHA every single month. Me ain't talking about for the year,
Right.
Every single month, because that is what it costs for health care on the island. And by the way, I saw a little note from the CEO saying, by the way, it's 45 million we need.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because we now have to provide, because we now have to think about expanding the hospital to get more beds, it means we now have to inject more money into that instead of dealing with schools, instead of dealing with other community facilities, instead of investing into other things. So it's a cyclical thing, and you not being healthy is actually preventing so many other things.
Because even if you provide and you expand the service, if we as a people continue not to take care of our health, we will still have the bottleneck. We will still be full at capacity. How does the TRHA then try to be more intentional? Because I know there are ads, so we will hear, a blue room open, a pink room open, and then we hear nothing about it again. We know that men shy away from getting medical checkups, and yes, we may have a guest, someone from your division coming and talking about Men's Health Day and encourage and a one-time fare. But how does the division become more intentional in making sure people really understand this and encourage some sort of change?
Certainly, and you are correct about that. I also would take responsibility for not doing more of that, probably because the division and the TRHA has been in almost an emergency mode for the last 3.5 years.
Yes.
I will be the first one to admit that I was an OJT and I only now figuring out what to do. This whole Secretary for Health position, I am finally understanding what it takes to get to where we needed to go. So as we have some of these other things balance off, as we get rid of some of the emergency issues that we've been dealing with, we can now start dealing with some of these other societal, health, promotional, and so forth issues. But those are also part of the plan as relates to the strategic direction of the TRHE and of the division. And we are now working through how to get to that point, which again is why I say to people, don't allow them people to take this blessing from you all. We are getting there. Do not give up on us now, just as we are getting to the point of going above and beyond what you are used to.
Because when you became secretary, you had to hit the road running. You had COVID to deal with.
It was in the middle of COVID. It was trying to deal with that. It was in the middle of not having ambulances. It was in the middle of everything seemed to have been breaking. And we had to just get back to basics so that we don't all die. And now we can do the lift, and now we can jump ahead to talk about healthy and health promotion and the other things that are necessary.
And we're talking about being intentional, and I would have vaguely recalled at some point someone from a department in your division talking about schools, etc. But can we, ramp up the information that our young ones have it packaged, of course, age appropriately, and let them understand what a healthy lifestyle is? How a simple thing, parents, please stop giving your children soda, especially on mornings or for lunch. You might treat them with it, but I see it, but that's just by the way, as the thought popped in, right? Because I don't know, be intentional. So even if mommy or daddy makes a poor choice, that child can say, you know what, I learned this and that, and I don't think we should have that. So my older son goes through these cycles, right? Of course, like typical children, they like snack, but I may regulate the type of snack. I try to choose the lesser of the evil snacks for them. And he would go, he loves to exercise. So he would go through these videos and he would exercise, and he wants this app on my phone to borrow it. And then I would give him a snack. Oh, I'm having carrots today. Oh, I'm having this. But it don't last too long. But I encourage the little snippets of when it comes, or he will correct me, mommy, you shouldn't be eating that. Or you come in to exercise, they say you want to exercise, So, and I would tease him, because then I could get whatever snack. I say, wait, what happened to the carrots phase, and I would tease him. But he's learning and he's aware. So even in his moments, he is able to make those decisions and say, I don't want this because it's not healthy. How can we get children to get to that point?
So I think that is something that needs to also happen in the schools. I remember when my mom was a teacher and in preschools, they used to have, instead of snack time, you have fruit time.
Yes.
And they actively, they wouldn't throw it away. But if the parents sent the child with a snack in a paper, they would send it back.
Right.
We're not throwing away your food. We're not throwing away your
but not on our watch.
Not on our watch, not on our compound. Send them with a fruit instead. So I think it is that kind of societal thing that needs to happen. But yes, it does need to start from early. And I would throw in one other thing as well that we're having a serious challenge with. And this is on the public health side, where we are seeing Tobagonians just being downright nasty.
Right.
Where they are tossing things out, and right under a no dumping sign, you see people dumping. I think this says something about our psyche as a society generally, that we simply do not care. And that, I think, is a larger, bigger cultural thing that we need to figure out how to fix. And then I think the body part will come as well when we are doing all of those things together.
And, even we spoke about sodas and soft drinks. Let me not Americanize this. We say sweet drink and soft drink, right? Even some of these schools, I remember Harmon School of SA was one of the first secondary schools who would have banned soft drinks from their cafeteria. I know bishops would have followed. I don't know if these things are still being upkept, to encourage students. Yes, you have the juice, it has the sugars, but it's a little less dangerous or less the impact of it than the soft drink, because and you see them, they're going through town, they stop by this roadside shop, they buy, a certain brand soft drink, a certain color, and that is what is normal. Yes.
And that's the thing, doing it every once in a while may be fine, but when we calculate how much of it we do, it's not once in a while, it is normal, it is every single day, and that is where the challenge comes in.
And this part of the world, we have a serious sweet tooth. I visit a bakery sometimes, sometimes, and I like savory pastries. And every time I go to this particular bakery, everything is sweet. And I'm like, y'all don't cater for people who don't like sweet stuff. And they'll be like, this is what the people want. And I'm like, you know, the intake of sugar. So we may be conscious of, okay, I'm not going to drink this soft drink, but I'm having a jam tart or coconut tart. I'm eating a pack of biscuit with cream filling.
And all of it is sugar.
And we don't realize that we might try to take it out one way, but we actually adding more another way. So we have to take accountability. It's, you know, it's ourselves, it's our life. I try to think of my children, my grandchildren to come if God spares my life. I want to be around. So I have to take these little steps. And I'm preaching to the choir here because I don't do what I'm supposed to do all the time. We know the struggle. I know the struggle, but we have to do it bit by bit.
And you have to, and that is the part. I think sometimes we try to do it too drastically, and we try to make a change that is just not sustainable.
Right.
So that is what we also need to encourage. That, you know, you if you think about it, doing it bit by bit, doing it intentionally. So let's say for lunch, I will not, or I will only drink water with my lunch. That is starting, and then you can add something, and then you can add something, so that is something that you can sustain. That is something that you can continue doing.
And I like that, setting sustainable goals. Just little things. So choose a water day, one day for the week. That's your day. You're not having anything with added sugar. If you need something sweet, get a fruit. Find a five finger somewhere. Oh gosh, mango. We still have mango season, you know. And even with our fruits, those of you who are not supposed to, you know, do one mango a day is enough. Don't sit down with the bucket and the bowl, right?
And I would, one more thing I would add really quickly to that is, when I say be intentional. So, for example, if you know where my the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, it is probably the tallest building in that area.
Yes.
I refuse to take the elevator.
Right.
Take the stairs.
Yes.
Just taking the stairs is one step in the right direction, because you are now adding your activity. Take it up and down. Whenever you see me going into the elevator, know that it's because I tote in a whole set of stuff, or I am in a hurry that I need to get up there and come back down quickly. But other than that, take the stairs. We have a building like where we are now. That elevator should never be in use. Take the stairs. So it's just those little intentional things that we're encouraging people to do, and hopefully we will never have to go into emergency mode in the hospital again. We would, as a matter of fact, when the ambulances come, we will never need them because we are all healthy and so forth.
And you have seen countries who are able to do it, who have been able to decrease what they spend on their public health care system. So it's doable, but we have to play our part, and we can't just sit for governments to come, governments to go and be they fix it all. We have a responsibility, and we all need to work together. I always encourage us, because we now in this modern world, we are all in our little spaces and we mind our business, but you are your brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. Form a little walking group. You know, it's easier when you have someone to help you feel accountable. So if I have to walk on my own, trust me, it ain't happening. But when I have my girlfriend who would call, or my husband will say, hey, meet me so and so, we walk in, then I have no other choice. I show up. You know, so do little things like that, and we can get there. Keep that hope. We will get there if we really want to. And Dr. Brebnor, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us, explaining especially that emergency mode, because I know many of us would have seen it and not really understand what it meant. And we know that we are not in that mode, and it simply means that the hospital is at full capacity. So if you don't necessarily need to be there, and it allows for the system to pause so you can get things up and running again. So viewers, this is the end of our GMT this morning. I will not be here Friday. You know I'm your Friday face. All right, Chanel will hold on for me. If not Chanel, you'll have someone quite competent to take us through the paces. Let's join Chanel tomorrow, Tuesday, for another episode of GMT. And thank you for staying with us this morning.